31% of Americans prefer receiving a text message over a voice call. How many of you would rather receive a text message than get a voice call? I'm getting to that point where I'd rather get a text message also. For those who send and receive at least 50 text messages a day, more than half of them prefer to receive an SMS over a voice interaction. Okay, here we go. A little awkward. 39%, now this is 2 years old, who knows where the numbers have gone since then, they admit to using the smartphone in the restroom. Now, with the toilet paper roll hanging up on the screen here, how many of you would like to receive location-based apps? Or not apps, ads. Location-based ads. How many of you would like to receive location-based ads? Why might you want to? Okay, there's a deal right there.
Looking for a place to eat.
And you're looking for some ideas. You're out of ideas. Here's an idea. Others? Okay, so you're in an unfamiliar place. You want to get a little bit of intel on what's going on there. What might be some good advice? Okay, so it turns out that more than half of mobile phone owners want to receive location-based advertising. What do businesses think when they hear that statistic? Oh yeah, money. Okay, Google did a study. And what they noticed when they compared mobile traffic to other kinds of traffic was they saw that mobile search never shuts down. So what we have here, blue is early desktop search numbers. Red is mobile usage. And if you look at traffic by day of week. On the desktop, we have this dip on the weekend. On the mobile, if anything, we have an increase on the weekend. By time of day, mobile, even at 3:34 in the morning, there is mobile activity going on in search, whereas the desktop pretty much shuts down. So we're using our mobile devices all the time to search. Now, a lot of studies are starting to say that we're consuming more data using mobile devices than we are with desktops or maybe even than laptops. Mobile devices keep on adding new functions. How many of you were closely tuned in to the iPhone 6 announcement? What new showed up in terms of hardware with the iPhone 6? Okay, so a different, now that's maybe software, I would say, though. So what new hardware-wise showed up?
Biometric sensors?
Yeah, so now you've got the watch that somebody down here mentioned. You've got the watch where you can monitor your heart rate and things like that. But what other biometric sensors are on the phone? Yes, please, in the red shirt.
I don't know what it's called exactly, but it's basically the hardware that enables Apple Pay.
Okay, so the near-field communications is what that is. I've had that in my Android phone for a lot of years now. I'm glad that, so I've ordered a 6 Plus. It'll be here in 2 weeks. But yes, I can start to pay for stuff with my phone. Altimeter. Okay, so now there's an altimeter sensor to tell you what altitude are you at. If you know anything about GPS, you know, well, I shouldn't say it that way. GPS is less precise in the vertical dimension than it is in the XY dimension. And so having an altimeter really helps a lot. Okay, new hardware functions are showing up all the time. Okay, let's see here. Here's the deal with smartphones. And sorry, that's an old iPhone 3GS or something. Ancient history. Your smartphone is almost always on. It's almost always with you. It's almost always connected to the network. What happens when you get those three things going on is a really compelling value proposition. What happens is you can do almost any computing function that you want to think about using your mobile device. And it really changes our behavior. It really changes consumer behavior. And let's talk about consumer behavior for a second. Let's think about social influence. Who is it that influences your purchases? Is it people who aren't your friends, but you spend a lot of time with them? So I come to work, I hang out with other professors, students. Is that the set of people that influences the things I choose to buy? Or is it my friends, my family, my close friends who, from college or high school? Who influences my behavior, my consumer behavior the most? How many say it's the second one, the people who aren't necessarily your friends, but you spend time with them? How many say that influences your consumer behavior? Okay, how many say it's your family and your close personal friends, that kind of... Okay, so I have a little surprise for you. Turns out to be the people that you spend the most time with are the ones who influence your consumer behavior the most. Now, if you think about why that is, I'm coming back to this word context. People who are near you are an important part of your context. You'll have interactions with them, and they will tell you about things that they're involved in. I just bought this thing. I just read this in the newspaper. The water cooler talk. You're going to hear some of these things, and there will be a natural transformation and spread of information because of that. Think about a camera for a second. I'm really close with my mom. I love her a lot. She's wonderful. Am I going to ask her what camera I ought to buy? I mean, I might if she's a really great photographer, but I don't know. And even if she's a really great photographer, maybe I'm not a really great photographer, and maybe that professional photographer isn't the right person for me to ask. As much as I trust my mom, I'm not going to ask her probably about a camera. What about my best friend? It's going to be the same set of questions that I address. I don't know if I'm going to ask even a professional photographer. The best people for me to talk to are people who are like me, whose usage of the camera is going to be like my usage of the camera. And so what do you do when you want to go buy something like a camera and you're going to spend $800 or $1,000 or pick your number that's not chump change, it's something significant. Where do you go to get advice? Where do you go? User reviews. Where do you find them? Please.
KenRockwell.com.
Okay, so kenrockwell.com is one. I like digital photography, dpreview.com. There are other places. You can go to Amazon and you can look at the star ratings and read the consumer reviews. We do all kinds of stuff like that, and we try to find people who we can believe because we think their use cases will be like our use cases. I'm taking landscape shots, or I'm taking portrait shots, or whatever the thing is that I'm doing. Now, when we start to look at what our smartphones can tell about us, they know a ton. It's scary how much your phone can tell about you. Your phone can reveal subtle signs of mental illness. And mental illness is a bigger problem than you might think. 1/4 of adults in the U.S. are either experiencing mental illness or have not very long ago or will very shortly in the future. It is a big problem. And your phone can tell if you're experiencing some signs of anxiety or depression or things like that. You can predict movements in the Dow Jones Industrial Average stock index. So, for example, one study looked at Twitter messages sent by mobile devices, and up to 6 days in advance you could get something like almost 88% accuracy in predicting how the Dow was going to move. Okay? You can measure the spread of political ideas through a community by looking at what your smartphone knows. You can, in Belgium, we saw, if you know anything about Belgium, there's this cultural split of the different ethnic groups, different languages. You've got the Flemish and the French groups, and you can see if you look at the cell phone information, they're almost never interacting with each other, those two groups, at least as the cell phones see it. We can also detect physical illness symptoms, flu symptoms. How could that happen? How the heck could we discover flu symptoms through cell phone data? Okay, so maybe it's a usage pattern. Maybe we see that we're sleeping later. Maybe we're going to bed earlier. Maybe, it's things like that. Yes, it's the usage pattern.
People that frequently use Twitter getting on to say, hey, I'm going to be out for the day, I'm really sick.
Okay, so you can link in. Okay, what happens is we can assemble all kinds of information. So let's talk about some of the information available and what kinds of things we can figure out from that information. First of all, there's location information. Just by the fact that you're connected to the internet, the connection point that you use is going to give us at least city-level location detection. So it might say I'm in Salt Lake or Sandy or someplace like that when I dial in from home. Dial in is an old term. when I connect through my Comcast cable modem or my DSL, or it's not Quest anymore, it's whatever the CenturyLink DSL. It may have me a city away, but I'm going to be within 50 miles. Now, if I turn on the GPS in my phone, obviously things get more precise. We can triangulate from cell phone towers and get more precise. Your cell phone, does anybody remember the big old brouhaha with Apple and with Google about, hey, they're collecting all this location information about me? What was happening is, if your Wi-Fi was on, even if you weren't connecting to an access point, it could see what are the access points that I detect in the vicinity. And then by looking those up in a database, it can say, oh, I see these 5 access points. That means that you must be roughly bottom floor of the Tanner building. And they build this database, and they send all of that data into the central database so that they can help you more quickly and more accurately locate yourself. So when you turn on the GPS, it doesn't just rely on the satellites. It's using all this other information to help pin down your location. Now that iPhone 6 has the NFC chip in it, you can know its location to within a precision of a few centimeters when it's close to one of those NFC sensors. From your internet connection, we can figure out, from your location information, we can figure out your altitude. We can figure out whether it's raining because we go talk to a database that has all these inputs on, is it raining, snowing, is it hot, is it cold, what's going on? Are there clouds? Are you in danger of sunburn? What is nearby? Are there lakes nearby? Are there buildings nearby? What's in your vicinity? And now we tap into some more databases. We have access to your calendar on the phone. So what events are on your calendar that are near in time? And then I've got access to all these other calendars out there because I'm on the internet. And what other events might be happening? Can I notify you that there's this cool thing going on that you might be aware of, or want to be aware of, because I know your interests, and I've watched how you behave and what things you go to. I've watched where you are. You know, your phone, it records all of that information about you, and that's why the privacy advocates are so up in arms about all of this location information. We can tell a lot. We can figure out where you live. We can figure out where you go to church. We can figure out, are you a student? All of these kinds of things, we can figure that out from your location history. We can figure out, are you on the road? Are you traveling? Okay, let's see here. We can figure out places that you're going a lot, and are you likely to come back there again? So do I need to offer you that coupon to get you back in? And then I can figure out, where are there other people who are similar to you? So now, as I build my big old database, I can start to compare you with all these thousands or millions of people and say, okay, here's a set that's behaving kind of the same way. Maybe I can market to them in a way that would be more effective, knowing who you're kind of like. I can figure out which business entities you're interacting with. I can figure out the organizations to which you belong. If you've got Facebook installed, what about that friend graph? I can figure out who you're connected to, LinkedIn, all of these other things. And we start to build these huge databases of information. It's a little bit Orwellian and it's a little bit scary, but guess what? It is so cool. I've got this, whoops. I got this microphone I'm going to throw around. Sorry. So I have this Android phone. It's an unlocked phone, and I went to a conference in Hong Kong last November. I went and got a local SIM card. It was something like $20 worth of SIM card I got more than a week of internet and phone service in Hong Kong. I plug in the SIM card here, I've got my full functionality, and now all of a sudden my phone starts telling me, oh, hey, you know what, there are some nearby attractions you might be interested in. If you want to get from point A to point B, here is the local transportation that you might be interested in. And my phone started proactively showing me things that might be of interest to me now that I've changed from Provo, Utah to Hong Kong. And it was really kind of weird, kind of eerie, but it was kind of cool too, that it was able to assist me so actively and so well. It kind of figured, hey, you must be a tourist. Let me show you some tourist kinds of things. And it was a little app called Google Now. Who uses Google Now? It presents little cards, and you can say, you help teach it, what are the things you care about? Do I care about this location? And when you put, in my Google Calendar, when I put an address on an event, it will tell me now, hey, you need to leave in 15 minutes to get to this appointment that you need to go to. It's looking ahead and helping me figure out how I can have a better experience. Okay. One other point on this. People move with a high degree of redundancy or repetition. With 94% accuracy in this one study, we could take past movements and predict future movements to that degree of accuracy. Where are you going to be at 12 o'clock on Sunday? If you were at the church building last Sunday and the Sunday before that and the Sunday before that, I'm going to make this prediction, magic, that you're going to be at church on Sunday at 12 o'clock, and I'll probably be right. At least I will be 94% of the time. And this, it doesn't matter what age you are, what gender you are, or any of those other characteristics. This applied to all people in the study. So, given that our phones can know this much about us, which is a little bit scary, a little bit fun, how do we make sure that we as users have the right level of experience with our phones? How do we pull resources together and present them at the right time without getting in the user's way? I had a student, I was teaching a class in Austria on how to do Android development, Android mobile phone app development. One of the students said, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a little app that says, when my GPS says that I'm in the classroom building, and my calendar says that I'm scheduled to be in class, I'm going to auto-silence the phone, and when I'm outside of those parameters, I'll turn the sound back on. If you've ever had your phone go off in the middle of class, that's an app that you'd say, oh, that's kind of a cool app. Anybody remember Mr. Clippy? That was an example of bad artificial intelligence, okay? So somebody did this little cartoon. Let me just read it to you. You can't read it from the back. I'm Kalo, your new assistant. From now on, you will speak only when spoken to, and the first and the last word out of your filthy sewers will be, sir. Do you maggots understand that? There's only one choice, and that's you can click on sir, yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Clippy was, and if you remember Microsoft Bob, and there was a little puppy dog somewhere in there. No, thank you, no thank you. That was bad AI. But how about spell check in Microsoft Word? You don't even think about that anymore. You just use it. It autocorrects as you go. You don't even bother to turn that off. Back in the day, we'd actually sometimes turn off autocorrect and spell check. Apple does a really good job with user experience, and that's especially what I would call in the small intelligence. So Siri can answer some interesting questions. What's your favorite Siri question? Where do I bury the body? Yeah, okay, so should we try one? Where do I bury the body?
I found quite a few cemeteries. 8 of them are fairly close to you.
Okay, so that's not as cute as it used to be. Any other ones that you can think of? Siri, what did you dream about last night?
That as I wandered by the way, bare winter suddenly was changed to spring, and gentle odors led my steps astray.
Siri, what did you dream about last night?
Electric sheep, but only sometimes.
Okay. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm sure she won't. Okay, I'll ask her one. Siri, will you go on a date with me?
It's Tuesday, October 7th.
Oh, boo. All right. All right, she didn't get cute with me. All right. Anyway, so... yeah, she knew. All right. So Siri is an example of AI, but it's not very far advanced. It's kind of at the beginning stages of what a digital assistant could do. But in terms of asking basic questions, that's pretty interesting, actually. And there are certain use cases for which it works well. But I think where we really need to do work is in the large. intelligence in the large. What I mean by that is if I said to my technology, please take me to the mall, I need to go to Mr. Mac and get a tie. It'd be nice if I could have a car drive up, pick me up, drive me to the mall. It drops me off at the door, figures out how to park, and then I tell it, come back in 30 minutes or something like that. That would be an in the large kind of a problem. Or if I said I said, Siri, please schedule me an appointment at the doctor for my mom. I have to take her to go get her blood pressure checked. That would be one that would require a lot of intel that, like, what is the insurance plan that my mom is on? What are there doctors that she prefers to go to? What is my schedule like and what is her schedule like? And that's something that we could turn our software and our hardware loose on, but we're not quite ready for that level of thing yet. But here are my key points. Mobile context awareness is here to stay, and mobility is really a multiplier for us. It enables us to do things we couldn't do before because that technology is there all the time with us. And to get the really, really smart applications is going to take a while, but we are seeing some interesting progress. I think the future is going to be mobile and it's going to be connected. Now, I'm not going to try to delve into all of my slides on how you do this, but let me give you kind of an overview. If you want to do an app, you want to take advantage of all this cool stuff that's available to us, there are a couple of broad strategies here. One is you could just develop a website, and you make the website friendly to mobile devices. You've all probably experienced a website that's really bad at working on a mobile device, right? Do you have any favorites you hate? The testing center, okay. Why can't they get a website that will work on a mobile device? Okay. Now, doing a mobilized website where you just have it, it recognizes that you're coming on a mobile device and it gives you a better experience. Sometimes they dumb it down and it's a worse experience. But when they really can give you a better experience when they recognize it's an iPhone or an Android phone, that's cool. And that's one of the fastest ways to develop some technology to put in the hands of your users. Now, the other end of the spectrum is you could do a native app. You could say, I'm going to learn how to develop for iOS, I'm going to learn how to develop for Android, I'm going to learn how to develop for Windows Phone, and I'm going to program an app specifically to that platform. That is very complex. It can be quite expensive. Any guesses on how much it might cost to develop a simple app? What would you think you might have to pay? I want to do a to-do list app. What might I have to pay? 20 grand. That would actually be at the very low end. I would think 50 grand would be about an entry point for a fairly not too complicated app. 20, I mean, yeah, probably you could get somebody to do you one for 20, but to get a real pro to do it, 50 grand. You might get the best experience for the user out of that money, but it is going to be expensive and complex. And then there's a strategy that kind of combines the two, and I'll actually show you a little bit of that. You could put a website, a web browser inside of your native app and get a lot done. I will have this in the slides that I post, but I won't spend a lot of time talking about it. Basically, what you need to do to develop an app, you've got to understand the platform you're going to. So I either need to know iOS or Android or Windows Phone or whatever. BlackBerry? Anyone? Anybody here have a BlackBerry? Okay. No. Have you seen one in a museum? No. Okay, next step after understanding the platform, you need to figure out what are the features you want in your app. And it really helps to have a roadmap of those features because users expect upgrades over time. They don't expect that the app is going to be, you just download it once and then you're done. They expect upgrades over time, improvements. The next thing you would do after figuring out the features is you would sketch out a storyboard to show, here are the different views in my app. Here are the scenes as I go through this storyboard. Basically like a film developer, let's see, what's the right word? Storyboard. Yeah, it's a storyboard like a film creator, a director would do to say, here's the map for my film. You're going to do the same thing with an app. Then you're going to design a database system, and then you're going to take all of that and you're going to map it to whatever platform you're working on. Now, I have been developing a website and a set of mobile apps since 2004. The Scripture Citation Index started out as a website. And how many have used this before? Your bishop says, hey, I'd like you to give a talk on obedience, and you go look up on the left-hand side, 1 Nephi 3:7, and you find, because you know that that's a good obedience scripture, and then you find all of the 90-something talks in General Conference that have used that scripture, and you can quickly pull them up and assemble some quotes and have a nice talk on obedience put together in a short amount of time. Well, we saw the iPhone come out in 2007, and then we saw Android come out, and we thought, well, okay, we better get a mobile app going for this project. And so I developed an Android app. And it's a decent experience on the Android app. What's nice about it is you can do it right in church. As somebody is giving a talk and they're referencing a particular conference talk, you can pull that up and you can start to read through that and other things. Of course, you have Gospel Library. You could do that with Gospel Library too, but this has the interesting aspect of a scripture index. Then we went back through and we said, okay, we've done it for Android. Let's do an iPhone version. And then we did an iPad version as well. And what happened when we did this? First of all, I discovered it's a lot of work developing an app. It is a ton of work. You have no idea. It's a lot of work. But usage of the citation index increased significantly when I released the mobile apps. And I think it's the mobile apps that are going to continue for the foreseeable future to have the most usage. There are people who still use the website, but a lot more people use the apps. When I last measured, it was something like 5 to 6 times more use as a result of the mobile devices. Okay, now, let's build our first iPhone app together. Here's what we want to do. Given a latitude and a longitude, let's have a little button we can click and pull up a web browser that goes to Google Maps and displays that location in the web browser there. So I'm going to show you, whoops, too soon for conclusions. I'm going to show you how we do this in this tool called Xcode. Xcode is the tool that you use for developing iPhone apps on, well, iOS apps on iPhone or iPad. Okay, now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the File menu and I'm going to say, let's make a new project. There are 5 different templates I can choose from. I'm going to choose this one that says Single View Application, and I'm going to call it Map It Business Management 371R. Okay, and I'm going to put it in someplace on my hard drive here. Okay, now, when I create this template, there are some pieces, there are some pieces of code sitting over here that have been automatically generated for me. But one thing that's of particular interest, let me zoom in here. I've got a thing here called a storyboard. And I can drag and drop widgets into my storyboard, and I don't have to do any programming to create the user interface. So I'm going to start over here. First of all, let me set it up to the size. What do you want, an iPhone 6? Okay, we'll set it up to the 4.7-inch iPhone size. And now, I have all of these little widgets over here that I can drag out. And so we need a couple of labels. And as I drag, you're going to see these blue guides that make it easy for me to keep things separated appropriately. So, oh, actually, I did a little longitude. I probably want to do latitude first. So I have latitude and I have longitude, a couple of labels. And now I'm going to want a button over here that's going to say Map It. And then I want a couple of text fields. So if I look down in the lower right-hand corner here, I can drag some text fields in. And let's get one, oops, centered, there we go, about there. And now let me duplicate that and get another one here. Okay, so I've got 2 fields, I've got 2 labels, I've got a button. Let's try to center that a little bit better. And now I need one more piece. Let's go get a web view, a web browser basically, that we can just drop into our app. There it is, it says web view. Okay, there's my blue guideline, so that's as close as I want it to be to everything else. And now I have a web view. I have not written one line of software code, I've just dragged and dropped widgets. Anybody can do this, right? If you know what the widgets are. That doesn't take a high degree of expertise, right? So now the next thing that I need is I do need some code to make this whole thing work. So I'm going to delete this stuff that got auto-generated. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make some connections between the storyboard and the programming code. So I'm holding down the control key and I'm dragging out of this text field over into the right-hand side, and it's saying, that's pretty hard to read, sorry about that, but anyway. So I'm going to call this latitude field. And so now I've got a connection between those two things. This latitude field is connected to that widget in the user interface. And I'm going to do it again for longitude field. Longitude field. I'm going to do it again for the web view here so that I can give the web browser some instructions. And then the last thing I need to do is I need to say, hey, when the user clicks this button, I want to do something. So I drag that over here, and I say I want to have an action that I associate with this called map it. And I connect that, and so now I've got all of these connections between the code on the right-hand side and the storyboard on the left-hand side. I just need one more, actually let me run it as it is. We'll run it and we'll see what happens here. Let's see, that's a little too big. There we go, that's the right size. And why is it not running? All right, hang on a second. Whoa, what happened? Did it? I think it closed my app. All right, try this one more. Actually, let me minimize this window so it's not zoomed in, and I can see better what's going on here. I click the run, you see it's building. Okay, it pulls up the app, and there's my latitude and longitude, and I can type stuff in here, and I can click this button, but there's nothing going on. I need one more piece, and that is I need to put some code inside of this map it function that I've created here. So I'm going to type real fast, and I have a bunch of instructions here. And basically these instructions are doing, it's pretty simple. I'm saying, look, first hide the keyboard. If the keyboard is showing, hide it. Next, let's figure out the latitude and longitude that the user is asking for. So I'm going to read this latitude field, and I'm going to convert it to a number, and then I'm going to build a URL that you can see is going to maps.google.com, and I'm going to tell it in the URL what latitude and longitude I want and what zoom level I want, basically. And then I'm going to tell the web view, hey, here's a URL I'd like you to load. And that's all there is to it. Let's see what happens when I run that thing. Okay, so like before, I can type in. So let's do 40.2506 by minus 111.65247, and let's hit our map it button. Whoa. Hey. Freaky. Okay, and I can pinch to zoom in and out. Okay, so, and I have a fully functional web browser here. So if I wanted to, there's probably a way to get to Street View. I'm not quite sure, but anyway. I have a fully functional web browser embedded inside this app. Yes, please.
Would there be issues with selling that? Would some of the royalties go to Google?
So in this case, so Google provides this service of they'll answer a request for a URL with whatever information they're handing over. There are situations where you might have to pay a royalty to a content provider, but in this case, we actually wouldn't do it this way. We'd go use the embedded map view that's available for iOS, and we just use Apple's maps in this case, if this were really the app I wanted to do. But my point is, it is super simple to write a container where most of the app is a web browser, and you have a few other little controls in the app as well. That's kind of a high back for you, and that kind of stuff is going to continue. We're going to see an increasing variety of wearable computing devices. The mobile experience can be much, much better than the non-mobile experience. You've all gone through this. It is so nice to be able, when you're in line and you don't have anything else to do, just to be able to tap out a text message, to go read an article, to respond to that email, whatever it is. When we do this, we need to be aware of the user's context. We need to be focused on what are the things that the user really cares about. And we need to implement context-aware intelligence. And you can all design this stuff. Maybe you won't all be app developers. I don't expect most of you will walk out of here and want to be app developers. But, and when I say that, I mean programmers. Maybe not all of you are going to be programmers, and probably very few of you actually will be. But you can design this stuff, and you can think through the user experience. And you can say, how do I want this to work? How's it not going to get in my way? How's it not going to be Mr. Clippy, but instead going to be more cool and be more of that experience that I want? The tools to support all of this development right now are very sophisticated. They keep on getting better, better and better all the time. I think it's very important for every one of us to understand and to own this mobile experience. And when we see flaws, we see opportunities for improvement, that we think about how we would develop that technology to fill that gap. I'd love to teach you mobile development in my IS 543 class. I've got a couple of my students here. Is it a fun class, guys? Yeah, okay. Yes, the answer is yes, of course. No, it's not fun. It's a lot of work, though, isn't it? Am I telling the truth when I say it's a lot of work? Okay. We can all be masters of this particular environment. This is the world we're growing up in, and it's just really a fun thing to be a part of. Thank you for your attention today. Again, go grab some food up in 470 if you'd like to do that. I think they'll have it there in a few minutes.